Hey, everybody, welcome to Text Request Talks, where we have conversations with business leaders about how they make things happen. Presented by Text Request, the business text messaging platform that lets you text from your office phone numbers directly on your computer or any other device so you can stop making phone calls and start actually getting responses. Learn more at textrequest.com. I'm Kenneth Burke, and today we're talking with Trey Powell, who's a franchise owner for both Mosquito Joe and Wonderly Lights. So, Trey, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Can you tell us just a little bit about what you do for each of those brands and what the brands do?
Sure. Well, Mosquito Joe, we are in our 10th year, and I have a franchise in Lexington, South Carolina, and also in Augusta, Georgia. And we are an outside pest control company. It's mostly about making outside fun again. We don't go inside the house, and we don't do termites. So it's mostly mosquitoes, fleas, and ticks. But whatever is making the backyard not so fun, fire ants, spiders, anything like that, we have a solution for.
Is it mostly residential? I
It
think of
is.
Augusta as golf course territory, right?
No,
So
sure. Yeah, it's almost all residential. I mean, we do a few commercial jobs, but for the most part, it's not something that we target or go after. It's mostly folks trying to enjoy their backyard.
and then tell us about the lighting business as well.
So we started doing Christmas lights a few years ago, and basically just to keep my guys busy. And over at Mosquito Joe, because we were basically off part of November, December, January, and February. At the end of February, we start going again. So it was about a 3 month off time, and I really wanted to be able to employ them year round, but I couldn't carry them for 3 months. So we found that doing professional Christmas light decorations for both residential and business, was a great solution to really fill that gap. And that was really the purpose when I started it. It really turned to be a lot bigger business than what I even expected. Everybody loves Christmas lights, and nobody likes to put them up and take them down. And so, man, we just found a great demand for it, and it fit perfectly with our season. And I also found that the space was very, very fragmented. It's really, the Christmas light business is almost all mom and pops. There's really not a national leading name brand or anything like that. So we decided to create a franchise out of it. And we ended up partnering with Buzz Franchise Brands, who was the founder of Mosquito Joe. They sold the company 5 years ago to Neighborly, which is a big, PE conglomerate that owns, like 17 different home service brands. But and so at that point, Wonderly Lights was born, and it's great. We've grown. We had 13 open our first year, 32 our second year, and we're going into our third year now. So it's we're off to the races.
That's huge. How did you get into Mosquito Joe? Were you in pest services beforehand, or why this brand?
Kind of like I got into every other business I've been in, which is kind of kicking and screaming. I was looking at franchises. I was with Liberty Tax Service for 20 years, and I was looking at other franchises that I could start. And a friend of mine who I used to sell franchises with back in, way back three lifetimes ago, she was working for this little startup company, Mosquito Joe, and she found out I was looking, and so she called me and she's like, "Trey, you got to try Mosquito Joe." And I was like, I don't know. I don't think I can get excited about, pest control. But I was like, if you can kill some bugs, come on over. I got a million bugs. And so she's like, I just sold a franchise in your area. Let me get him over there and see if he can help you. I was like, I'll try anything. Send him over. So I was one of his first customers, actually. And we didn't have mosquitoes. We had midge flies, which look like mosquitoes, but they don't bite. They actually breed in lakes. And if you leave your lights on at night, they'll cover your house. And because of that, then you get a lot of spiders on every window and door, and it was just a big nuisance. And they came out and treated our house. And I'm not kidding you, the next day we were literally sweeping these bugs into piles. And I was like, holy crap. I was like, people need to know about this. I was like, I got four of my neighbors within a week to sign up and get their houses sprayed because they had the same exact problem. And so I called her back. I was like, all right, you got me. I was like, people need to know about this. How come I never knew about this before? And she's like, well, it's kind of new. And I was like, well, this is amazing. And I bought a franchise about 30 days later.
That is quick. And so for
So,
you, for customer acquisition, do you largely get customers through word of mouth, like how you were referring to that owner, or what do you do to bring people in?
well, in both businesses that we have currently, that is our number one source, and really always has been since year two, is people loving the service and referring their friends. And really, in both cases, Mosquito Joe, it's not quite as much as it used to be. But when we started, I mean, there wasn't, companies weren't, nobody was spraying yards for flying insects. I mean, it wasn't a thing, and so a lot of people had a lot of questions like, what is this? Like, how does it work? Does it work? How long does it last? Is it safe? And all that stuff. And so, when they would see a neighbor had a sign or they saw us stopping at a neighbor's house, they would ask the neighbor what it is. And they're like, oh my gosh, they got rid of our mosquitoes. It's amazing. We can use our yard without having to spray ourselves down. Next thing you know, they're calling, we got to get this. So we do get a lot of business through word of mouth. And the same thing with Christmas lights. It's funny that Christmas lights been around since the dawn of time, but a service that will do it for you is like we reinvented the wheel. I mean, people are like, oh my God, that's genius. Like I love light. I hate putting lights up. Can you please come do this for us? And so it's both of them are we get probably 40% of our business is referrals
Okay,
of
and
our new
then
customers.
how do you create those incredible customer experiences so that you do get so many referrals? Are the chemicals just that good for the bugs, or is it your people, or what? How do you bring it all together?
Well, I've learned a lot over the years, and I wouldn't say that I started out and did everything perfect, but we certainly have learned a lot over the years. And one of the things that I would recommend, that really has revolutionized us and many other businesses I've seen, if they once they get it, is that you want to make it as easy as possible for people to do business with you. Too many people get hung up on, the 1 or 2% of customers who are a pain in the rear, and they want to set policies in place to punish those customers and it really affects everyone else. I mean, a perfect example is a customer no shows or a customer cancels at the last second when the technician arrives, and they get all angry about that. I'm like, this happens, but it doesn't happen all the time every day. It's like 1, 2, 3% of the time, and you can't change your whole business because of that 3%, right? The same, another thing is make it as easy as possible for your customers to pay you. Um, we are almost 100% credit cards. And if I were smart back in the day, I would have made it 100% credit cards. And the only reason it's not is because we didn't start out that way. But um, I talk to so many business owners that don't want to pay the fee. They don't want to pay that 2% or 3% fee. It's just an aggravating fee that they have to pay. Well, at the end of the day, the customer pays all the fees. Unless you're taking a loss, if you're profitable business, your customer pays all of your expenses. So you're not paying it, they're paying it. And so if you want your business to be 2 or 3% more profitable because of these fees, raise your fee by 2% or 3%. I don't know any industry in the world that is going to make somebody leave you or go somewhere else. And it doesn't matter if you're charging $100. You're telling me if you charged $102.50 that they would be like, oh, that's it, I'm out, right? It's no, like they're not going to do that. And the same thing is if you charge $10,000 and you charge $10,250, is that right? Did I do that right? Yeah. They're not going to leave you. Like they're going to pay the bill, right? You just build it into your price. You don't build it in just for the people who use credit cards, because then you're making them feel guilty about using a credit card, which is how they want to pay. you're making them you're making it a hassle for them because they have to open an invoice and they have to either electronically figure out how to pay you, or they have to, God forbid, write a check and bind an envelope and buy a stamp. Okay, I can I could talk for a half an hour how that's bad for you because you're building an AR and all these people owe you money. And so yes, that's bad for you, but it's bad for the customer because it's a hassle. You don't want them to even think about it. It should be easy to do business with you and easy to pay you. It should all be automated and automatic. And if they want to stop, all they have to do is reach out and stop. But if they're happy with the service, just keep giving it to them and keep charging. It's not it's not rocket science, but I can't believe how many people put a fee to pay with a credit card because I don't want to pay that fee. And just build it into your price and make it as easy as possible and as flawless as possible. And I mean, to me, there's no other way of doing business. It aggravates me when I get a bill from somebody and, oh, well, if you want to pay by credit card, it's $18 more.
Yeah, you're speaking my language here. Something we say, or two things we say a lot here at Text Request is one, create frictionless buying experiences. So exactly what you're talking about, make it easy for people to work with you, easy to pay you. That's the most important thing. I'd agree there.
Yep.
And then going back to the services, you always want something that's done for you. You don't want to buy something and then have to do it yourself unless it's maybe you're trying to get a discount at IKEA or something and build
Yep.
your own.
I mean,
Uh,
it works so well, like with text requests. I look at January, which is obviously a very slow month for us. We're not putting up Christmas lights. We're taking them down, which we don't get paid for. And we're not spraying for mosquitoes, right? So, but during that month, we do a big prepay campaign where we give people the opportunity to pay in advance for their service and they get a discount. In other words, you prepay for the whole year rather than me charging your credit card every 3 weeks. You say, hey, how much is it? I'll just pay for the whole thing. And it's amazing. We have 10 to 20% of our customers that do it with both businesses. It's in January and we're not going to put up Christmas lights till next year, but they're like, yes, let's get this out of the way. Or they're going to set up something where they pay us every single month and spread it out and make it easy. Well, again, we've automated that system, where basically now we reach out to them from text request and say, hey, here's the offer. Do you want to pay? Here's the discount and here's the amount. And they're like, yes, sign me up. And we're like, and we were literally respond with three words or two words, same credit card. They say yes. The next thing is done. In 1 week in January, we closed $450,000 in business, and almost all of it was with our existing customers, and almost all of it was over text. And it was text like that with customers, and whether it's a Christmas light customer or it's a Mosquito customer, it's the same conversation. Hey, instead of paying us $1,000 for the light or $1,200 for the lights, you can pay $100 a month, or and just pay. So when Christmas comes, it's already done. They're like, oh, that sounds great. We just say, same credit card. They say, yes. They say, done. And they get a receipt. And we already have their card. And how nice would it be when you do business with people that you like and it's a reoccurring service? I mean, even my handyman could do this. I don't call him all the time, but next time he comes over, he does a project and he says on the way out the door, hey, thanks for the business. And you just want to put money to put that on the same card. I'd be like, yes, please do that. Done. Like, it's not expensive to set up a system like that where in your system, it keeps the credit cards or the service that you use. And it's so easy for people to do business with you. They don't send you a bill and then you got to hanker over the bill and then, all of that stuff. You tell them how much it is. They say yes. Same card? Yes. And you do it. So
One thing that's beautiful about business too, especially the franchising model, is that there's always somebody else who's been through it, figured out a process for it that you can copy or at least use as a starting point. And so, exactly what you're saying, just figure out what's that process for you, set it in place. For between the two brands, you mentioned there's 10 to 20% who prepay for the year already. Do you typically have a lot of customer overlap? As in, would Wonderly go to Mosquito Joe's customers to say, "Hey, we also offer this service," or is it entirely separate?
I mean, we mention it, but you can't be all things to all people. Even when it's very closely related, I remember when Mosquito Joey decided to start doing perimeter pests, which is more like general pest control, which is like roaches and ants, trying to keep them out of your house. Still not doing termites, but I thought, man, I had 1,000 customers, and I thought, man, these people love us. They're all repeat customers. They come back every year. They love us. They would love to. I said, I bet you that I'll be able to get 100 of them on board. And we texted them. We called them. We sent emails, and after all of this effort, we got 12. And that's because you can't be all things to all people. Even in a closely related industry, I mean, we're not the everything. We're Mosquito Joe, and it's difficult to convince people that you do other things, that you specialize in other things. You go to Brake King, and Brake King wants to sell you tires. You're like, no, I got a tire guy. Like, you're going to have some questions in your head. I mean, there's certainly some low hanging fruit that you're just going to get by asking, but it's never going to be more than 10% of your total business. And that's when you work really, really hard at it. So, same thing with, so when you talk about Mosquito Joe and Christmas lights, now you're really in a totally different industry completely. And so we mention it, and we talk about the fact that we own this other company, and we'd be glad to help them. There's a little bit of overlap, but not tons. So it's totally separate company. We market it separately, separate brands, separate vehicles. The only thing we share is the employees.
There's a lot of things going on
Mhm.
this machine for your businesses. So how do you determine, we'll start with one, I guess, how do you determine what is something you can delegate versus what's something you can do yourself or should do yourself?
So, I mean, at this point, I have pretty well stepped back from both businesses. I probably will step in a little bit tighter with the Wonderly Lights this year than I did this past year. But I mean, Mosquito Joe, we've been running for 9 seasons. It's our 10th season, and um, about 5 years ago, I hired a gal that was way overqualified to be a CSR, and she quickly started advancing. And I quickly, I started just giving her more and more, and she just kept taking more. And now she is really running the whole operation, which is what she was qualified to do at the beginning. But she had a newborn baby, and she wanted to work very set hours, and she didn't want to have to take things home and so forth. Well, the child's 5 now and in school, and it's a little bit different story. So she is running the show, and basically I meet with her once a week, and we go over the numbers. I've created a report card that tells me that when I look at those numbers, I can tell you exactly what the health of the business is. And so we just review those numbers, and we set goals and go from there. But I don't even have an office there anymore, which is kind of odd. But I drop by and 3 or 4 times a week and pick up the mail. But outside of our meeting once a week, it's she's running the show. And because she was doing that when we started doing Wonderly Light, she just took that over as well. And so she was running that. That's still new and growing. And so the things that I really do, I do the finances, and I do marketing for the most part. And so with both companies. And so that's the part that I'm going to really step into, back into this year, as well as making sure that our guys are trained. I mean, it's a fast and furious business, and you got to get a lot of people up and trained really, really quickly. And we're also transitioning from treating for mosquitoes you know, to doing Christmas lights, and one's going down, the other one's going up, and so it's a difficult transition now that we're doing so much business with the Christmas lights. When in the beginning it was kind of easy, but now it's like, if I want to continue to grow that business, we've really got to. Last year we hired like six people that were just temporary employees just to hang Christmas lights. So I'm stepping in those areas.
Did you intentionally look for somebody to handle the day to day for you, or was it more opportunistic? You saw, here's somebody who could handle it, so let me keep passing off more and more.
So that's a great question, because honestly, I have tried and failed at what I'm doing right now so many times in my career because I didn't do it right, or I didn't have the right person in place, um, or wasn't willing to hire somebody with enough skill to do it. Um, I've struggled with it my whole life, and so this now I'm actually involved in a Vistage group. I don't know if you're familiar with Vistage or not, but it's just a group of executives that meet. We meet. There's no more than 16 people in the room. We meet once a month for a whole day on a Tuesday. It's a no cell phone meeting, and we just dive in. We have a guest speaker, and then we talk about each other's businesses. And it's not about business development. It's more like working on the business and making the business run better, and that sort of thing. And so it's not how can I market and find new leads. It's really about how can I get this department to work with this department? How, who are the right people, finding the right people, just that type of stuff. So along with that, I get a 90-minute one-to-one coaching session once a month. And between the two, it's been very, very valuable. And my Vistage coach has helped me to, you know, to bring this person along and really know when to step back and what I should give them and how I should monitor it. And where I've failed in the past is I had a person who wasn't ready and I just stepped away and I let the wheels fall off, and then I come back in and save it. And I've done that so many times, or I'm just helicopter managing this person, micromanaging them to death, and they just never feel like they have control, and so they don't take control, and then I'm frustrated they don't take control. And so it's probably a lot of mistakes that a lot of people make when they're first trying to make that transition. I wish I had learned before I was almost 50 years old, but better late than never.
Hey, you got there, right?
Yeah, we
It's
did.
it's interesting too, because as I interview more and more people, something that keeps coming up from these high achievers is that they've invested in coaching, or at least a community group at the very least that they can learn from. Do you have any recommendations on how somebody can find a group like that, or an executive coach that's a good fit for them?
Well, it happened to me somewhat by accident. I was referred into the group, and it seemed like something that I would be interested in and like, but I didn't have a specific goal going into it. But as we started doing our one-to-one sessions, it became very apparent. The number one thing I would say is if you can find a coach who's not just a professional coach and that's all they have ever done, but you really want somebody who's played the game before, because they're going to give you a lot different advice. And I don't know what else to say. It's, you're talking to a player, not a sports agent. You know what I'm saying? If you were going to learn to be a tight end, you want to talk to Travis Kelce, or do you want to talk to his agent? Like, his agent knows about the game. He can pontificate about everything about the game and sound super, super smart. But the very important little intricate details that make Travis Kelce amazing, it you'd never learn from anybody but him. And so that's a difficult ask, because people who are great are not always great teachers. And but if you find somebody in the coaching industry who has never been a superstar, never done what you are trying to do, there, I don't know, that could work, but I would say that you're going to be missing. So you're going to be hitting a lot of 50,000-foot stuff, that they've read or seen, or philosophize. I mean, but the little the running, tackling, and blocking stuff that got you there is, I would say, is probably going to be missing. I've been in that industry before, interestingly enough, and it's a difficult place to be.
Well, I think that's a good place to stop. I really appreciate this conversation. I've learned a lot as well. So Trey, thank you so much.
Sure, absolutely.